Okay, good morning everyone. Today's breakfast and share is dedicated by my dear friend Rabbi Robert Yadgarav in honor of Chodesh Elul and as a bracha for all the Bnei HaKehillah. Everyone should be zoicha to a year of Shnas Chayim v'Shalom, bracha v'Hatzlacha, Nachas the Kedusha from all of your families, and Hashem should mevarich Rabbi Robert with all the brachos, and we shall be zoicha together to see B'Nechamat Sia in Yerushalayim. Okay, so viewership advisory is in effect for this morning. This shiur, okay, if you came this morning, you wanted to have like a feel-good shiur about Elul, sorry, wrong place. Now's your escape. If you want to go, now's the time. You wanted B'Shal Shudas yesterday was nice and fluffy. It was very nice. No, but fluffy is also good sometimes. It's good to feel good. It's important to feel good. Also, there was a chasana. The guy who's getting married today. I had to tie it into the chasana, But, this is not going to be like a frightening shiur. This is not like, if you don't get your act together in Elul, who knows what's going to happen. But today I'm just telling you as it is, okay? First we'll start with some, holy stuff. Holy stuff always makes people feel good. But then we're going to get down to the meat and potatoes. Okay, the first thing is, we know there are many ramazim to Elul. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch brings down ramazim to Elul. They come from the Arizal. Umal Hashem Elokecha es levavcha v'es levav. That's a remez to tshuva. The Kitzur brings ish l'reyehu matanos avyonim. That's a remez to tzedakah. By the way, tzedakah is a very important part of Elul. Tzedakah is an important part of Elul. It's very interesting. The Bnei Yissaschar talks about how every month has a special permutation of the Shem Havaya that corresponds to that month, right? There are 12 permutations of the Shem Havaya. In other words, you could take the 4 letters Yud Kei Vav Kei and rearrange them 4 different ways. Each month has a special connection to one of the 12 permutations. So let's say Chodesh Nisan is Yismachu Hashamayim B'Sagel Aretz. Everything's in order. In the month of Nisan, everything's in order. The month of Tammuz, everything is haywire. Tammuz is a rough month. So therefore it's Yud Kei Vav Kei backward. It corresponds to B'chol Zeh, Einenu, Shoive Li, Soifei Tevois, backward. And what's the month of Elul? The month of Elul is Utzedaka Tihya Lanu Ki, which is Hey. What? Vav Yud. Hey Vav Yud. And the reason why it's Soifei Tevois is because Elul is the last month, so it's in the Soifei Tevois. So that means tzedakah is very connected to Elul. Tzedakah is fundamental to Elul. Some even suggest that, the Gemara Bava Basra says there's an inyan to give tzedakah before tefillah, like the pasuk says, "Va'ani b'tzedek echeze panecha." So before Chodesh Tishrei, which is a month of tefillah, so we have Chodesh Elul, which is a month of tzedakah. That's why I like to say a lot of the mitzvahs of tzedakah are in Parshas Re'eh, the opening parsha of Chodesh Elul. You have Kifasayach Tiftach, the mitzvah of tzedakah. V'lo yera levavcha b'sitchalai. Tzedakah is very connected to Elul. So you have tefillah, you have tshuva, you have tzedakah. But what is the main job in Elul? What's the main thing we need to do in Elul? We have to be serious, we have to be scared. Like, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? Here it is, Rosh Chodesh Elul. We all came to shul this morning. We had a hisayrus, but we don't quite know what we're supposed to do in the month of Elul. So I'm going to tell you a little story. There was once a veker in yeshiva. Well, let's say there was a mashkiach. And the mashkiach sees a bacher. And the bacher didn't come to Shachris, not the first day of the Zman, not the second day of the Zman, not the third day. So the Rosh Yeshiva tells the bacher, you didn't have an alarm clock? The bacher says, I had an alarm clock. The Rosh Yeshiva said, you didn't know what time Shachris was? I knew what time Shachris. You didn't set the alarm? I set the alarm. What time did you set it? I set it for a half hour before Shachris. So the mashkiach says to the bacher, why didn't you get up? The bacher says, the alarm didn't tell me to wake up. It just rang. It didn't say get up. I heard it, but then I went back to sleep. The mashkiach said, you didn't know that when the alarm clock goes off, it means to get up? He said, how am I supposed to know that? It didn't say in the instructions that the means get up. That's the story. It's a good story, right? So a lot of people come to shul by Elul. Now let me show you different things people do by the shofar. You have one guy, he puts his talus over his head, he's shaking back and forth by the shofar, but he has no idea what the shofar is telling him to do. He could shake, one guy is crying, one guy is listening, he's going like this, one guy, they're all the same. One guy went like this. All of those 5 guys are exactly the same. You know why? What's the difference if you put your finger in your ears or you don't know what it's saying? There's no difference. So the $1 million question is, what in the world is the shofar saying? So Rabbi Yisroel Salanter has a big chiddush. Rabbi Yisroel Salanter's chiddush is, he writes in the Ar Yisrael in Igar Zayin that everything in the world is cause and effect. And no effect will be greater than the cause. You can't have a greater effect than a cause. So if you have a weak cause, you'll have a weak effect. If you have a strong cause, you have a strong effect. So the shofar, the question is, the shofar, you think it's a big deal? The guy blows in, he goes to a sheep, he cuts off the horn, he blows in it. So now what, you think your life's going to change now that you heard that? Because you heard a few sounds in the morning, you think it's going to change your life? It's a weak cause. So it's not going to produce a big result. What is the result the shofar is aiming at? So Rabbi Yisroel Salanter says the shofar only has one simple message. It's not saying to learn Torah. It's not saying that. It's not saying to come on time to Shachos. It's not saying don't speak Lashon Hara. It's saying one simple thing. It's saying learn Sifrei Muser. That's the message of the shofar. Now, if Glatstein would have come into the shul, yeah, that's the pasuk. But that pasuk is not on Chodesh Elul. Chodesh Elul, the shofar says one thing: learn Sifrei Muser. But I already learned Daf Yomi. I learned Daf Yomi with the best daf in the world, with diagrams and pictures, and I chazer the daf, and then I learned it be'iyun. Pal, it's not good enough. It's not going to help you. You blew the whole Elul. It's like you came into shul and you went like this. You didn't do it. I don't care what yeshiva you go to. They could learn with Reb Chaim and Reb Shimon Shkop and Reb Baruch Ber and find 73 nafkaminas between what the Afagav and the Tosfos is. You blew the whole Elul. It's not. No specific bachram intended over here. Okay, that's a very simple thing. That's where if I would have said this, then you would have every right to ask me to step out of the shul and to pawn off my wares somewhere else. I didn't make this up. This is Rabbi Yisroel Salanter. He was the unequivocal Gadol Hadar in his time, and he had a great chiddush. His chiddush is, the message of the shofar is to learn muser. Now, once you do that, that will change your life, even if you do it in small measure. You know, the Chafetz Chaim in Siman Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah brings down a tradition from the Chidah. Because even though the Gemara says, Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavlin, so you would think, okay, why do I need to learn muser? Why do I need to learn muser? We all have an illness, it's called the Yetzer Hara, and I cure it and I remedy it with learning Torah. So Rabbi Yisroel taught that was back in the day. You know, if you're basically healthy and your blood work is pretty good, then you could just get away with a multivitamin. Yeah? But if you go to a doctor and the doctor says you have an infection and the doctor prescribes you, I don't know what, amoxicillin, Bactrim, clindamycin, whatever he prescribes you. And you say, what do I need that for? I'm going to take a multivitamin. You're a fool, she'ein kamoyu. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Once you're sick, you got to take the medicine. So Rabbi Yisroel Salanter said, we're not on the madrega just to take multivitamins. In other words, daf yomi, daf hashavua, oiraisa, it's all great. That's multivitamin. However, you need to take targeted medication. That is the message of the shofar. The message of the shofar is, take your meds. Take your meds. You say, but I already say Tehillim. That's great. That's not going to do you anything in Elul. I already learned Sifrei Chasidus. That's great. That's beautiful. I'm going to Uman. Go to Uman. Go wherever you want to go. As long as you learn muser, you'll be good in Elul. Because muser will put you on the trajectory that you could actually change yourself. Because Elul is not about feeling holy, being holy. It's about changing and improving. And there's only one way to do it, muser. So you say, what are you talking about? What in the world is muser? What is muser? So I'm going to tell you a little story. You ready for this? Rabbi Salanter would say the following story. You had a Rebi. The Rebi had a kid and a Talmud. The Talmud he loved to pieces. He loved the Talmud. The Talmud was a Bal Midos. The Talmud was respectful. The Talmud was loyal to the Rebi. The Rebi had such love for the Talmud, you could see on the Rebi's face the love he had for this student. This student was literally a chip off the old block. The kid, on the other hand, was a rotten brat. The kid was rebellious. The kid was disrespectful, and the kid brought the father only aggravation. The day came, there was a little fire in the kitchen, the smoke alarms went off, and there were 2 rooms in the house. The kid and the student. And all of a sudden, the Rebi woke up at 3 a.m. And he was half asleep, and he could only save one of them. Who's he going to save? He'll save the kid every time. But what do you mean? If you would have asked the Rebi in the middle of the day, who do you love more? He would have told you, I love my student more than my kid. My kid, I can't stand him. The student, I love. If you would have asked the Rebi, he would have said that he loves the student more. If you would have asked the Rebi, sign on a dotted line, who do you love more? He said, I love my student. If you would have asked the Rebi, take a shvua, who do you love more? He would have swore he loves the student. If you asked the Rebi, swear on a Sefer Torah, who do you love more? He would have swore he loves the student, and he does, but when you wake up at 3 a.m., what's in your mind doesn't take over, what your instincts take over. And instinctively, every parent will love their kid, even if they're rotten, a lot more than any student. So says Rabbi Yisroel, what do we see from here? Rabbi Yisroel said we see from here, it doesn't matter what you know. It doesn't matter what you know. What you know does not impact how you behave. What you know doesn't impact how you behave. Not only is it not impacted, the Mishnah Berurah brings down from the Birkei Yosef, the Chidah, that just the opposite. You could have people who know more will act worse. You know why? Because they know more, they're more arrogant. So they will act worse. So Rabbi Yisroel Salanter said, the first rule that every forget about Jew, human being has to recognize is that what you know does not affect how you act. Are you masking to that, or are you just being polite? You're sitting here because I gave you a bagel, so you're a little tired. You have to be masking to what I'm saying. Are you masking that what you know does not affect how you act? Wow. Rabbi Yisroel Salanter would say, I'm not up to the midot yet. Even if you learn midot, what you know even about midot, in other words, a guy could learn, I just learned the Gemara Nedarim. It says, Kol hakoyes, kol mine gehenim sholtem bai. But then I go home and something happens that I don't like, and you get angry. What do you mean you know the Gemara? The answer is you can know the Gemara. You can know about Peh. You could take a pin test on it. You could say over Toisus. You could say over the Marshal's Kasha. You could say over the Chakira, Baruch Ber, and Shimon Shkop. What's Pshat and Kas? Is it a Siman or a Siba? Yeah. My son has a Sefer. It's called what? Siman Siba. What else? Chefsa Gavra. Thousands examples of Siman and Siba and Shas. You can know you're not allowed to get angry, you're not supposed to get angry, but you'll do it anyway. The answer is what you know has no impact on how you behave. So, Rabbi Yisroel Salanter taught, he famously taught the greatest distance in the world is between your head and your heart. Everybody, all the information is in the head. But whether we feel it, that's a different story entirely. That's why Esav's head is in the Maras HaMachpelah. His head is there. The rest of him, I don't know where it is right now. Not sure. It's maybe in the Arab court. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. We don't know where the rest of Esav is. I don't know. His head is in the Maras HaMachpelah. So Rabbi Yisroel Salanter, really based on psychology, created the system of limud hamuser. But it's not sourced in psychology. It's substantiated by psychology. Rabbi Yisroel Salanter mined it from the Avos Rab Nasan, what Chazal say about Rabbi Akiva. We know that Rabbi Akiva was Am Haaretz. Not that he didn't try to learn. Chazal say he tried to learn. It didn't go for him. And then one day he went down to a well and he saw a hole in a rock. He saw a hole in a rock. And Rabbi Akiva wondered, where did this hole come from? And then he saw the dripping water, and Rabbi Akiva made the following kal v'chomer. He said, if water, which is soft, could penetrate a heart, Torah, which is kasha kabarzel, certainly it could penetrate my heart. This is what it took. I'm assuming that Rabbi Akiva, came to yeshiva and he tried to learn. I'm assuming he made an effort. I'm assuming he made an attempt over here, and it didn't go. He said, it's not going to work for me. I'm learning it. It's Chinese. It has no bearing on my life. It has no effect on me. So you're telling me he saw water hit a rock and that changed his life? What exactly was the insight that Rabbi Akiva saw from the water hitting the rock? So Rabbi Yisroel Salanter said, Rabbi Akiva knew water penetrates rocks. If you would have asked the man, hey, Akiva, he's sitting there with the sheep, did you ever hear of the phenomenon of water making holes in rocks? I'm assuming he would have said yes. I don't think this was like, he discovered America over here. Oh, wow, water penetrates rocks. I'm assuming if you would have asked him, do you know, does water penetrate rock? He would have said yes. So what was the insight he learned from seeing the hole in the rock? So Rabbi Yisroel Salanter said, this was the big revelation that came to Rabbi Akiva. Because as he's seeing the water hit the rock, each drop of water made no discernible difference in his eye. He didn't see a little. It's not like when Rabbi Akiva saw the water hitting the rock. He saw the water hit the rock and like a piece of rock flew off. And then the next time, another piece of rock flew off. He saw drip after drip. Not one drip made a discernible difference. So Rabbi Akiva said, if each drop doesn't do anything, then how did the hole get here? Says Rabbi Akiva, it must be that each drop makes a difference. I just don't see it. So too, when you learn Torah, especially if it's targeted Torah, of course, if you learn Shar Shanagach Sapara, it will change you. Not only will it change you, it will change the whole world, but as a multivitamin. But when you learn targeted Torah, when you learn muser, you learn about a particular midah, you learn about Yiras Shamayim. When you learn on day one, it won't make a discernible difference that you see, but it will chip away a little bit. And then when you learn the second day, it will chip away a little bit more. And then if you have a problem with anger, or arrogance, or patience, or jealousy, or any other particular midah, or you have a difficulty with the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara gets the better of you in a certain way. If you learn about that inyan on Sunday, Sunday's not going to make a difference that you see. If you learn about it then on Monday, Monday won't make a difference either that you see. You learn about Tuesday. By the end of the week, you chipped away something significant. And by the end of the month, you're a completely different person. So learning muser is the message of the shofar. So that's what I like to say. You have two guys in the shul. One guy is swaying with his talus over his head. He's weeping. The other guy has his finger in his ear. But if the guy doesn't know what the shofar is telling him, he got nothing out of the shofar. The message of the shofar is to learn muser. Which svarim are sifrei muser? You have Mesilas Yesharim, you have Archas Tzadikim, you have Shari Tshuva, you have Choyves Havavos, you have many svarim, many good svarim. Halacha is not muser. Halacha also, Rabbi Yisroel Salanter had a chiddush, if you have a weakness in a certain area, if you learn that area be'iyun, that also has a big impact on you in that area. But you need both. You need both. In the Sefer Tnuas HaMuser of Reb Dov Katz, which is basically a chronicle of the Muser movement, and the reason why I'm talking about this is because we have all the Bachrim here today who are going to the best yeshivas, and they wonder how come maybe they don't hear so much about learning muser there. It's because the Rosh Yeshivas, they expect you to know this already. Or they know you're coming to this shiur, so they don't need to say it in the yeshiva. It's obvious, you know. But you know, when muser was not accepted by everyone, you know, Rabbi Isla Petterberg met with the Reb Chaim Soloveitchik and to try to introduce muser in Volozhin. And Rabbi Isla Petterberg said, of course you have to learn more. You know, the Gemara says in Paga B'cha Menuvel, if the Yetzer Hara grabs a hold of you, the Gemara says Mashchel Beis Medrash, and if that doesn't work, you remember the Yom HaMisa. So you see, you need other ingredients besides just Limud HaTorah. So Reb Chaim Soloveitchik didn't accept it at first. He didn't accept it, and maybe he didn't accept it not only at first, he didn't accept it at last. But Rabbi Isla Petterberg came out, and he didn't agree with Reb Chaim. In any event, Kvar Hoira Hazakein. It's already in Siman Aleph and Mishnah Berurah that more important than any limud a person has is Sifrei. Now, I'm not telling you you should learn muser the whole day. If you learn muser the whole day, that's like taking, you know, you ask the guy looks like he's purple, he has green horns coming out of his head. You say, are you okay? What's wrong? Are you eating, what did you eat for breakfast? He said, a breakfast? I ate amoxicillin. And what do you have for lunch? Lunch? I had a different antibiotic. So he said, no wonder you look like an alien, you know. You can't learn muser the whole day. If you learn muser the whole day, you're not going to be a healthy Jew. You're not going to be well balanced. The meat and potatoes, Gemara, halacha, but you got to take your meds. You don't take your meds, you're done. You're done. You're done. You might as well, by the way, put your fingers in your ears for the shofar. I don't know. I'm not paskening. I'm not going to pasken. We'll ask the Rosh Yeshiva what's better. In other words, why even have your eardrum hear the shofar if you're not going to learn muser? If you're already signed off, I'm not learning muser, then you might as well, I don't know, go home after, help your wife. You know, you're missing the whole point of the shofar. Take that with a grain of salt, right? You should still, because maybe, even though you don't want to, maybe you'll do it anyway. I want to share with you something very interesting that Rav Dov Katz brings. And I heard this from Harav Avigdor Miller. When I was learning in Yeshiva Chafetz Chaim, I would come home for Shabbos, sometimes when I was supposed to, sometimes when I wasn't supposed to, and I would walk to Harav Avigdor Miller, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha. And during Shalosh Shudas, I would eat Shalosh Shudas with him, and he would talk to himself. I saw it. He would talk to himself. He would talk to himself. As avodas hamuser, he would say things to himself. I didn't know what they were. And then I once heard, he said that the avodah of muser is based on a psychological principle called auto-suggestion. You ever hear this terminology? Auto-suggestion. Auto-suggestion means that a person is influenced by what they tell themselves or what they, by the way, very interesting. You know, I'm talking a lot about Rabbi Wein lately. Rabbi Wein's father-in-law, Rabbi Lezer Levine, was a student of the Chafetz Chaim. Now the Chafetz Chaim was a kohen. If you know anything about kohanim, you know kohanim are feisty. Kohanim are feisty. And the Chafetz Chaim, people would come to the Chafetz Chaim, and the Chafetz Chaim was, you know, they could. And the Chafetz Chaim would go into a corner and he would talk to himself. And he would say, Yisroel Meir, you're going to get angry now? What's it going to do for you? It's going to help you? It's going to help you? It's not going to do you any good. Just calm down. Yisroel Meir, don't do it. Don't do it. And the Chafetz Chaim would talk to himself and calm himself down. And Rabbi Lezer Levine, his Talmud, Rabbi Wein said he worked on himself, that he never saw him get upset except for one time. That's a very big madrega. Now, it's one thing I could say, I never saw my Rebbe get upset. It's because I was never in his house. I don't know what's doing in his house. But, you know, Rabbi Wein was the son-in-law. So that's, you know, he said he never saw his father-in-law get upset. This is the power of auto-suggestion. Rav Dov Katz brings on page 234 that there was a French psychologist named Émile Coa, from 1867 to 1926. He says, I'll read to you the words. Lefi shitasai, mushpoim koichos ha'adam mehashinun ha'atzmi. A person is affected from his personal learning. Uve'ikr mishinun I taidai haba mibli das. You know what this means? This is the entire, I'm going to say it again. Ube'ikr mishinun I taidai haba mibli das. I todai, I think it means without knowing. I todai. You know what that means in English? Subliminal. You ever wonder, it's 8:30 at night, and all of a sudden, I have to have that hamburger. Well, why do you have to have that hamburger? Which store? I have to get it from Giant Burger. Why do you have to get it from Giant Burger? Who planted that idea in your head? The answer is because you thought that there's a mitzvah to read Jewish magazines on Shabbos. You said, what's the difference between learning Gemara and muser and Jewish magazines? It's all, you didn't really, they never told you, not only is there no mitzvah to read Jewish magazines on Shabbos, it doesn't do anything, not in this world and not in the world to come. But you know what it did? It put in your head, you have to go to Giant Burger. Now, you didn't open it up to learn. Eating a hamburger in Giant Burger. It's so important to eat a hamburger in Giant Burger. It's so important. You were lying on your couch, flipping first to eating hamburgers in Giant Burger, and then the next page is, you don't even have to inject yourself with, what is it called?
Manjaro.
The what?
Manjaro.
No, they have, every ad now is what?
The kosher skinny shot.
Yeah, you don't even have to use Skinny Shot. Now you could just put cream on yourself, right, and become skinny. And then the next page is some big chocolate cake, and then the next page is some other kind of, chemical that you could ingest to become skinny again. That's basically the avodah of the magazines. But you weren't trying to ingrain within yourself the taiva and the hana of eating a Giant Burger. It just entered your mind from seeing the ad, and now at 7 o'clock at night, while in middle of Ma'ariv, while you're saying Hashivenu Avinu L'Soira Secha, you have this urge to go to Giant Burger. Why? Because you saw the ad. So this psychologist pointed out that a person is influenced by what he sees and what he reads, todai, without knowing. It's subliminal. Most of a person is influenced by subliminal. So Rabbi Yisroel Salanter said, therefore, you ready for this? If you learn, you say right now, I'm going to take out a sefer and I'm going to learn about this midah. And I'm going to learn for 5 minutes. And then I'm going to learn tomorrow. And then I'm going to learn the next day. And then the next day I'm going to write down on a paper that the statement of Chazal about the importance of patience. Even though each day doesn't have a discernible effect on your personality, by the end of the week, there's a little bit of a hole in the rock. And by the end of the month, by the time Rosh Hashanah comes, the rock has a big hole in it. And that is the main message of the Shofar. The main message of the Shofar is to learn divrei muser, and by doing that, it will change your personality. It's not going to happen today, it's not going to happen next week, but slowly, you become a different person. And don't say, but the guy next to me, he just learns Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, and he's going to be the Gadol Adar. I'm going to take off time. I'm telling you, Nar HaYisi, you could do it. You could take off 5 to 10 minutes. If 10 minutes is too much, take off 5 minutes. Get a Mesilas Yesharim. You don't know it, you can't read Hebrew yet, because it's like Chinese, get it in English. That's also good. Get Mesilas Yesharim, Sharei Tshuva, Archas Sadikim, Chayves Hababais. Pick something that you want to improve in and learn a few minutes every day. It will change your life so that tomorrow when the shofar blows, you'll know it's saying, wake up. What it's saying is, Reb Yid, Taira Yid, learn Sifrei Muser. That was the great teaching of Rabbi Yisroel Salanter. So for the Bachrim, you're starting the Zman tomorrow. Even if it's not so popular where you are, it's okay. You don't always have to do what's popular. That's my whole piece. So it's a good thing we learned this today. Let's say we would have gone together in Cheshvan, and we would have learned about the message of the shofar. Likely you might have forgotten it by the time Elul comes. But now, in less than 24 hours, the alarm clock's going to go off. a guy comes out of shofar, how the shofar was so good. He made that shvarim mamish with the exact shiur that you worry about Rosh Hashanah, the shiurim of the. Get the message of the shofar. The message is limud muser. Have a great day, everyone. Agun Chodesh. Shkayach.